Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into something, well, it's a pretty radical text. It offers a way of looking at reality, at fate, that might just flip everything you think you know on its head. We're talking about our deepest beliefs about suffering and what really controls our lives.
So the author, Su Feng, kicks things off with a story that's just heartbreaking. A young woman, not even 30, with her 1-year-old daughter, she jumps to her death after finding her husband with someone else. It's a scenario that unfortunately feels way too real, right? This moment of pure betrayal that leads to this just irreversible act. But, and this is the key, the author wants us to look way, way deeper.
And here's where things get really wild. The author asks a question that just stops you in your tracks. Was it suicide or was it murder? He argues pretty forcefully that this wasn't suicide. He says it was murder, committed by an invisible killer. So you gotta ask, right? Who or what is this killer? All right, so to figure out who this invisible killer is, we have to step inside what the author calls the invisible prison. And get this, the culprit? It's not a person. It's this powerful, unseen force that's constantly shaping our reactions, our emotions, our entire destiny.
So what is this force? The text calls them mental models. Think of them like invisible programming. They're all these traditional beliefs and ways of thinking that society just hands down to us, and we accept them without even realizing it. They're like software running in the background of our minds, dictating everything we do, and trapping us in these endless loops, what the text calls karmic cycles.
So you might be asking, how in the world do we break free from this? Well, let's look at an example. Take the ancient idea of filial piety, this intense pressure that says not having a child is the worst thing you can do. That single mental model has caused so much suffering for so many people. But the author suggests a total reframe. What if, instead of seeing it as your duty to have a kid in this sea of suffering, you saw it as your responsibility to have children in a better realm? Just like that, poof, the pressure's gone.
And you could apply this same idea to other things too. Like, let's take lust or sexuality. The old mental model says, oh, that's the root of all evil, right? And that just creates this mountain of guilt and repression. But what if you transform your consciousness? What if you see love and desire as a gift from God, something to be honored and enjoyed? All of a sudden, something that was a source of shame becomes a source of gratitude. You've completely broken the power of that old toxic model.
Okay, so if these mental models are the prison, where do we actually feel the bars? Well, the author makes a really surprising argument here. You know all that advice we hear about living in the now? He says that's actually a trap. Why? Because for a lot of people, right now is exactly where all the suffering is.
And think about it. It's kind of hard to argue with that, right? What is our now usually filled with? Worries about rent, bills, getting food, our health, getting older, social stuff we have to do, just trying to stay safe. The author's point is that for most of us, the present moment isn't some peaceful Zen garden. It's more like a minefield of anxiety and pain.
And to really drive this point home, the text hits us with this absolutely devastating number. Nearly 1 million people every single year die by suicide. And this, the author argues, is the ultimate tragic proof. People don't end their lives because of something that happened in the past. They do it because their present is so unbearable and they have absolutely no hope for the future.
So, if the present is this pit of suffering, what's the way out? Well, this brings us to the author's most radical idea yet. He says, just escape. Stop living in the present and start living in the future.
Now, how is that even possible? Well, the key is understanding what life is. According to this text, life is really just perception and experience. That's it. For your consciousness, for your mind, there's actually no difference between what's real and what's a vividly imagined illusion. You know how a dream can feel totally real? That's the secret right there.
And this idea actually builds into a pretty clear 4-step plan. Step 1, you have to accept that life is all about perception. Step 2, you gotta be honest and recognize the suffering you're feeling right now. Then, and this is the big one, step 3, you vividly, powerfully imagine a beautiful, happy future. And finally, step 4, you let your consciousness actually live there, in that future, right now. You feel the joy, the peace, as if it's already happened. And here's a perfect way to think about it. Imagine you're in total despair, just at your lowest point. But then you find out, with 100% certainty, that tomorrow you are going to win $1 million. How would you feel today, right now? All that suffering would just vanish, wouldn't it?
It'd be replaced by pure joy and excitement. The knowledge of the future completely changed your present reality.
So, okay, we've talked about escaping these mental prisons, dodging the pain of the present, and living in an imagined future. All of these ideas are leading to one single, incredibly powerful principle: the ultimate master key to everything.
And here it is, the root of everything, of karma, of cause and effect, of your entire life, is your consciousness. It's not what you do, it's not what you say, it's not your circumstances, it's your consciousness. The whole game starts in your mind. You change your consciousness, you change your destiny. It's that simple and that profound.
Now, the author doesn't just leave it there. He actually gives us a kind of map for this transformation called the 8 ladders of thinking. It's basically a hierarchy of consciousness. You start at the bottom, level 1, with material thinking. You're just focused on physical stuff. But as you climb, you get to higher levels, like level 5, mental image thinking. That's where you can use that vivid imagination we were just talking about to actually shape your reality. And then, at the very top, level 8, is something called non-phase thinking, which he says is basically Buddhahood, or total enlightenment. The higher you climb these ladders, the more control you have. But wait a minute, this raises a really tough question, a kind of uncomfortable one, right? If consciousness is really the master key, can you just think your way out of bad karma? I mean, what about a genuinely negative act like corruption? Or even something like eating meat, which some belief systems say creates its own karmic debt. Can you just wish that away?
Well, the author's answer is, wow, it's pretty wild. He says that at that highest level of consciousness, that non-phase state we just saw, the whole idea of a separate you, a self, it just dissolves. And if there's no you to do an act, then there's no act. And if there's no act, there's no cause, which means there's no effect. The entire system of karma just stops applying.
And with that absolutely mind-bending idea, the author basically signs off. He leaves us with this final cryptic challenge. It's like he's saying, look, I can't explain this any further. Some things you can't just be told. You have to comprehend them for yourself. So what does it truly mean for your consciousness to be your destiny? Well, it seems that's a question we each have to answer on our own.